Hello, my lovely friends, it's Margaret, and it is time to talk about something a little different. So I have my phone here because today we're going to be talking about the podcasts I have been listening to, maybe if my phone will cooperate. So if you've been on my channel for like the last year or so, you'll notice that there has been a drastic drop in the number of audiobooks that I listen to. Like, I went from most of my reading being audiobooks like half in a month to 2/3. Some months I only got through one physical book, but I was still getting through like 8 books because I was reading audiobooks. And then June happened and my brother introduced me to podcasts. I have been in a very strange reading place since about June. I took things that I was already working on and kind of dialed them up to 10, and podcasts have helped with that, because a lot of my last 6.5 months has just been about learning things and learning the parts of history that we don't talk about, or that are covered up, or that, you know, aren't part of your typical school curriculum. Now, granted, I was homeschooled, so I still didn't get the typical school curriculum. So this last 6 months, it's just, especially the last, I think, 3 or 4 months of 2020, it was just really hard for me to get into fiction for some reason. I was much more invested or much more interested in reading nonfiction. So I wasn't listening to audiobooks as much because I don't tend to listen to nonfiction. I tend to more be able to want to take, especially the stuff that I own, I want to be able to take notes and stuff. So part of what's been helping educate me and part of what's been helping me kind of expand my horizons and learn about other people's experiences have been podcasts. There also have been changes in my work, so it's not as easy for me to listen to audiobooks as it was at my last job, because I have changed jobs since then. I got the new job in like May. It feels like I'd be more annoyed to be interrupted during an audiobook. I still do sometimes listen to audiobooks at work, but for the most part, it's podcasts. So the first podcast that we're going to talk about is the one that got me into podcasts, and that is Behind the Bastards. Now, I didn't actually start out with the main title. I actually started out with Behind the Police, which is one that my brother sent me. But he sent this to me, I think, mid-June last year. I was like, here, you should listen to it. And I ignored it for a couple of weeks. I thought, oh yeah, I'll get to it at some point. And then I was like, no, I need to get to this and listen to this. And this particular, like, there are a couple of offshoots that he's done from the Behind the Bastards series. But the premise of the original series is that you're learning all the stuff that you didn't learn in the history books about awful people, or about people that you thought were okay or were good. And then it's like, no, but they have all of this death and awfulness that has been following them around. And so then he led that into Behind the Police, and he goes to the beginning of the roots of policing and traces it up to the system that we have now, which is a mess. He's got that one. He's also got another series right now that he's talking about different insurrections that have happened through history. That just started last week, but I just enjoy it because he sits down and he's breaking down a lot of systems that I think people think are, good things. Like, he talks about the East India Trading Company. That's one of the episodes they talk about. He just talked about, like, I just listened to an episode that was about population control and how that's tied to eugenics. There are several episodes on eugenics, and there are several on phrenology, and you're just sitting there going, wow, like, I didn't realize how messed up this was. And I don't know, I enjoy realizing that people have always been awful, and but the human race has still managed to survive all of these, manufactured human-made tragedies and awfulness that have happened. We've still managed to overcome them and move past them. And in some ways, the world has gotten better. So for some reason, for a podcast that is about awful people being awful, it has given me hope. Another one, let's see. So another one I want to talk about is Write or Die. This is hosted by Claribel Ortega and Kat Cho. I started listening to this a few months ago. It's a really cute little writing podcast, and they sit down with a different author or authors every other week, something like that. But they sit down, each episode is them sitting down and talking with this author about their path to publishing. It starts from the very beginning of their career when they first started writing, and it talks about how long they were looking for an agent, how long it took them to find an agent, and then how long it took them on submission. And you're sitting there like getting all of these cool inside stories from publishing and publishing books. And it really just kind of helps give perspective when you're someone like me who is currently writing. Well, I'm not currently working on anything because NaNoWriMo broke my brain, but we're working on getting back to where I am working on things soon. And so I've got projects that I was querying, and I'm like, like, it gives you again, gives you hope, and it gives you kind of an expectation. And there are so many things that I feel more prepared to deal with and more prepared to like, I'm going to be expecting them now because I've listened to this podcast, and it's given me like, oh, okay, like, this is normal. Like, it's okay. Like, it's normal to take 5-10 years to get a book published. I do also listen to the Writing Excuses podcast. I think it started out with Brandon Sanderson. It's Brandon, Dan, and Howard. I don't know all of their names. One of them writes thrillers. One of them's Brandon Sanderson. One of them started out, he did a comic called Slock Mercenaries. And I just enjoy their conversations about writing. The more recent episodes, I feel, are a little bit more like they've actually gotten female co-hosts involved, so it's not just dudes. The nice thing, though, is that even though, like, even the episodes that are mostly just dudes, like, a lot of the time they will have a guest on, so that is nice. But even though it's 3 dudes, they're still very considerate. I really like, there was an episode I listened to from way back in, like, season 3, where Sanderson was talking about the fact that he's like, yeah, there are people that are like, yeah, it's historically accurate to have women continually being abused, blah, 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 like, he said it in a better way, but like how a lot of fantasy authors like to include violence against women because it's historically accurate, and he's like, yeah, but I don't want that in my books just because it's historically accurate and it fits the time period that I'm making up. It's my world, and I don't want that a part of my world. I don't want that to be a huge factor. And I really appreciated the fact that, like, they're thinking about representation. They're thinking about, okay, like, I'm not the only person that needs to be represented in these stories, and I'm not the only person that exists in the world. And so they're very, I don't know if the word is forward thinking, but they're considerate of other viewpoints, and they're trying to, like, at least from what I've seen, I haven't read any of the other stuff, but like, at least from what I've seen in but in Sanderson's work as he's going further in his career, and what I've read, because I've read from various points of his career, he is learning from, you know, the things that he does, you know, the feedback that he gets. So I really appreciate it, and it does have really good advice. Another podcast that I really like is You're Wrong About, and all of these will be linked in the description box, by the way. I will try and link, like, to their website or something so that you can listen to episodes. This is like 2 journalists that they sit down every episode, and they'll come up with something from, like, the 90s that you didn't know, like a cliche or a stereotype or something that was in our society. It was a social, not a social construct, but like, it's not a fad, but like things that, you know, like the phrase going postal. We just listened to one that was talking about multiple personality disorder and how that came into the public consciousness and how that was portrayed and what all of the things that fell out through that, and then it kind of fell off. They talk about the satanic panic. They talk about a lot of the misconceptions around Columbine, because apparently there was a lot of stuff that, like, was found out not to be true later, that the news was saying was true in the beginning, but nobody knows all of the corrections because, you know, those are never big stories. They seem to, like, switch back and forth every week or every couple of podcasts about who's, like, kind of pet project or little obsession that they're doing, because they seem to have, like, these all seem to be things that they're already working on or already interested in when they start talking about them. But I really like them sitting there, okay, well, this is what the common perception of this event or this thing is, and then this is what actually happened. I don't know, I just like debunkings just give me life. Like, I like, well, here's what actually happened, you were wrong. Speaking of education, another one I absolutely have to mention is Code Switch by NPR. This just goes into various topics about things that affect people of color. They cover a huge, like, variety of things. Like, they covered, one of the most recent ones they did was actually going into the medical field and looking at leukemia, and how the survival rates or the transplant success rates between white people and people of color are very different. Like, a white person is much more likely to get what's known as a perfect match when it comes to finding a donor, and a person of color is much less likely to get a perfect match, and that is a huge factor in whether or not you're able to take that transplant and whether or not it works for you. They're never very long episodes, but they are always very full of information, just packed with like things to think about and things to be like, okay, so this system is a mess. What do we do about it? It's a mix between going into history and going into what's happening in present day, and it's really, really just good to listen to and to be aware of, and you learn about so many different issues, because while the hosts, you know, obviously don't encompass all identities, all of that, they do a really good job of making sure to bring people in who are actually affected by whatever they're talking about that week and actually knowledgeable. I also listen to Audio Shelf. That one is a little like it's two hosts that sit down and they review audiobooks, specifically audiobook. In their reviews, they'll go into who the narrator was and how they think they did, and they'll kind of give you this idea of like what. I disagree with them in many cases. There are some cases where I disagree with them, like what their opinions are, but they will sit down and like be like, okay, well, this is how the audiobook narrator affected my enjoyment, and this is how the story affected my enjoyment of the audiobook. And it's just really interesting to listen to them talk about things that I don't necessarily consider when I am listening to a book. I'm just like, well, it's an audiobook, it works for me. Another one that I really like is called Yo, Is This Racist? And basically the setup is that it's these two people, it's Tawny and Andrew, and they're listening to voicemails that people will call in and either ask them a question about whether or not something is racist, or they'll like explain an experience that they have had and be like, is this? Like the entire point is like they're asking whether or not something is racist. And it's really just funny to hear them react to some of these things. So this is much more geared towards like, maybe not comedy, but just to them being like, what? Like their reactions to these voicemails, and it does have a little bit of an educational aspect to it, but mostly it is just their reactions and their thoughts on whatever the heck this person has called and talked about. It's really funny in some places, because like you'll be listening and you'll just be like, what? Some of them you'll be like, why did you even think that anybody needed to hear that? What? Why is there even a question here? If you're into true crime, I would suggest White Lies by NPR. It's about a murder that happened in 1965 in Selma, Alabama, the murder of Reverend James Reeb, and it was a big kind of thing during the civil rights movement, and it was one of those things that like everybody knew who did it, kind of in town, but nobody, like they weren't able to convict the people. So it was these two reporters from NPR kind of trying to trace things back and trying to get answers and trying to find out, okay, but who killed this guy? Because no one really knows. Like no one's been able to identify or actually say who the people in the mob that beat him were. And there's a lot of like misconceptions about his death and all this. It goes into a lot of propaganda and how history gets twisted to fit the narrative of people in power and people who don't want to see their power get taken away. I highly, highly recommend listening to that one. It is very, very good. It is also very, very graphic because, I mean, they go into the fact that this man was beaten to death, basically. I think I've got two more that I want to talk about because I enjoy them. But I want to talk about, there's one called Planet Money. This is another one that it's from NPR, and it does a variety of subjects. Like, it's not just one thing, but the basic thing is it's looking at various small sectors of our economy. So, like, they have, like, the last one was about TikTok. And then they've got one that's talking about how bee farmers like rent their bees out to people and how that affects the economy. They had one where they were going around buying old coolant from people, or they were digging into people who go around buying old coolant from people. They did one where they bought Christmas trees and as an experiment and like tried to sell them. So like it's a whole bunch of stuff, and it's really interesting and like makes you think and like makes you consider the economy in different ways. So I really enjoyed it. It's so funny because some of these are things that I would never have even thought to question myself, and then I'm like, oh, well, that is interesting why we do that the way we do it, and why do we do that the way we do it. And then the final one, I guess, that I'm going to talk about is called Do the Work, and they are on a break. I think they finished their first season. It's a host sitting down with two people who have had some sort of, not altercation, but, you know, a disagreement. They've had some sort of misunderstanding based on race. And he will take that situation for those people and they will unpack all of the things that made that situation the situation that it was. I don't know how to explain that better, but like he'll go into the history of why, hey, it's not okay to say this to black people, because it covers parts of history and things that people would not think would be important to history, and yet people are affected by the repercussions of these things. They're affected by the fact that these things are said. They are affected, like just different things that they are affected by, and things that it's a lot of it is about just intersectionality and how race is on top of everything else and how all of that comes together. And I really just appreciate the people who come forward to share these stories and try to work through some of these things. Not everyone wants to. As the most recent episode, one of the people that It was a little bit different setup than their usual episodes, but like one of the parties involved chose, the offending party chose not to be involved in the episode or comment or anything, and that was just like, coward. So those are the main podcasts that I have been listening to, and the ones that like just kind of bring me joy or bring me something new in my life. I will be back at you with some like regular bookish content later this week, but I wanted to sit down and like talk about the podcasts that I've been listening to, because I keep saying, oh yeah, I haven't been listening to audiobooks, I've mostly been listening to podcasts. I'll tell you about them someday. And so it is someday. We are here talking about them. Ta-da! Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Maybe when I have more podcasts to talk about, I will do a part 2. Who knows? If you are feeling chatty, let me know some of the podcasts that you have listened to. Have you listened to any of these? If you are not feeling chatty, leave me a headphones emoji down in the comments. Just let me know you watched to the end of the video. That is it for now, my friends. Happy reading, and I will see you later when we will talk about more wordy, nerdy things. Bye!